Valentine's bouquets come in all shapes and prices, but how do you know which one's best when there's so many out there to choose from? Well, it's simple. 1-800-Flowers.com is your Valentine's go-to. Right now, when you order early, you can get 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99. Or upgrade to 24 romantic red roses for only $10 more. It's an unbelievable Valentine's offer from 1-800-Flowers. 24 multicolored roses for just $29.99. Or upgrade to red roses for only $10 more. Roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, shipped overnight to ensure freshness and her amazement. 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99 or an upgrade to 24 red roses for just $10 more is the perfect reward for thinking ahead. Look, make sure you lock in this offer. It's only good while supplies last. To order 24 multicolored roses for $29.99 or upgrade to 24 red roses for only $10 more, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on the radio icon, and enter the code WINGO. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and enter code WINGO. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com, code WINGO.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Mike Reiss will join us in a little bit to talk about what is and isn't going on with the New England Patriots and what did go down with Malcolm Butler and why he didn't play a single defensive snap in the Super Bowl. We'll get to that in a minute. But, you guys had your vaccines or vaccinations, I guess, for your big South Africa trip coming up next month.
Yeah, we had Hep A, typhoid, and yellow fever.
Yeah, and the yellow fever, unlike most vaccines, is not a dead version.
This was live. We're not going to the whole explanation end of the shortage here in the States. We got was like a European type deal, whatever it was. It's live. Yellow fever is live in us right now.
So you and Junior
and my
actually
wife
had, but like just for I don't care about them. They're not in the building with me.
Yeah.
The two of you
were in close proximity with two people that have a live yellow fever virus.
All right, so we had our fine researcher, Brett, who can do anything, figure out what are the symptoms of yellow fever. What might I be picking up from these guys?
Okay, so I think I'll just set your mind at ease at first here, because Personally, I consider myself a minor expert on tropical diseases. I've had friends that have had dengue fever and malaria.
How did that happen?
They were on trips that were international and were infected with mosquito-borne diseases.
We are getting malaria pills for this trip.
So
yes,
Trey.
Yeah.
Even if they had actual yellow fever right now, yellow fever is not contagious human to human.
Okay.
It is literally impossible for them to give it to you unless you were a mosquito, in which they could give it to you, and then you give it to somebody else.
Okay, so I don't want to be a mosquito.
You've been known to be annoying like a mosquito.
Like a gnat, like someone flying around your face. Yeah, that's pretty much me in general. So I'm good there.
So you're safe.
So I'm good, Brett.
100%. You're good.
Okay. So you stop worrying?
Probably not.
Jonathan tweeted in. He said he went to South Africa. He said got the vaccine at some place and found out it was available at pharmacies, like at CVS's and stuff, for much less. He said, call them and get the info. Jonathan, I would, but if you heard the story, I already got vaccinated.
I was about to say.
No real reason for me to call there and get the info.
Not doubling down.
Not going to double down on this.
But you could have. How about that? Instead of going with Dr. Slappy on the run, we jumps out of a car
tried
and
to do
says
it
here.
the official way. You know, that's what we tried to do. We're trying to follow the rules here before we go. And by the way, this is a trip we're doing the shark cage, so pretty excited about that as well.
If the yellow fever doesn't get you, the shark cage
sharks will, huh? Yeah.
You've seen that video, by the way, of the shark that gets inside the shark cage?
Yeah.
And you still want
We're
to do
hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, it would. Otherwise, the show will be And Wingo.
Yeah, it would really ruin the whole
Coming
experience,
up on
wouldn't it?
And Wingo. Yeah. That's not a good name for
a show. There has to be that pause, though, right? Yeah.
Coming up on And Wingo. That would not be good. So please survive the shark cage.
I will.
All right. So thank you, Brett. I feel better. Feel a little better.
Good.
About my potential of not getting yellow fever. All right. Let's get you caught up on everything with
Off the Top.
No, that's not the
that's
right
not
one.
right.
Where'd it go? There it is. This is important. There you go. It's what's trending.
Mm-hmm.
How about this? The Lions officially announced Matt Patricia as the 27th head coach in franchise history. This less than a day after he finished his final game as the Patriots defensive coordinator. The 40-year-old Patricia has spent, Mike, his entire NFL coaching career in New England.
Yeah, so this, again, reminiscent of when Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel left after a Super Bowl the same time. And Matt Patricia, we had heard this for a while, and I guess we'll ask the question, why hasn't Josh McDaniels been named yet with the Indianapolis Colts? But Patricia goes, what will be interesting is what other coaches go. What will there be other position coaches that follow either Matt or Josh if he is hired in Indianapolis? How about position coaches in Philadelphia? Will any of them go?
Right.
They're coming off the Super Bowl, but you wonder if some of the coaches in New England see the end game. Bill Belichick's going to be 66. Tom Brady is not going to be a quarterback forever there.
He'll be 41
if we're getting toward the end of that, do some of these guys say, well, I work so well with a Matt Patricia or Josh McDaniels, so if they want me to, maybe do I follow them to the next staff as this thing starts to wind down?
It is interesting because the last time, which is also somewhat ironic, the last time that Belichick lost both coordinators, when he lost defensive coordinator Romeo Cornell and offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss, that was after Super Bowl 39, which was against the Eagles.
Right.
And then they went a decade without winning a Super Bowl. Now, they made it to a couple of Super Bowls, lost twice to the Giants, but when you lose two pillars of your staff, sometimes it takes a little time to get that thing going, and we'll see if they can reboot real quickly, like maybe people think they can, but you just don't replace some of these guys that have been with you for a long time that quickly,
right.
and there may be a little bit of a, I don't want to say maybe a hitch in their giddy-up going forward. That might be the best way to describe it. In the NBA, the Pistons beat the Trailblazers 111-91 last night to remain undefeated since making the trade for Blake Griffin. Detroit's 4-game winning streak has leveled them off at 500, 26-26, and has them right back in the thick of the playoff picture.
Yeah, they're right there. Philadelphia sitting in the A slot at 25-25. Detroit right there. So they were fighting for that spot, and that was the thought process out of Detroit is they want to get into the playoffs. So what is the end game? Because there are many that don't think there are going to be top free agents that are going to go to Detroit, that it would have to be the draft and or trades like this that would build this team up to where can they end up in the East. And you all want the championship, but a lot of teams aren't going to get the championship. So what's the end game for them? Middle of the pack or middle of the top 8, that 4 or 5 slot? Fill the stadium or the stands with a big name like a Blake Griffin and have a good showing out there and playing? Don't know, because we don't think any free agents are going to say, yep, I'm going to go to Detroit, unless you never know though. Winning brings in things. So could that bring in free agents if you say, you know what, that Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin leading this, could this work with this team? I think a lot of people are skeptical of that, but the bottom line is they're enjoying some success right now.
They certainly are, and this is exactly, look, they needed this for 2 reasons. One, they want to try and make a run for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And number 2, they were terrible in ticket sales. I think they were 83% of tickets sold in the NBA, second worst behind only Atlanta. So this has a twofold effect. Obviously, they get better, and they're bringing more butts in the seats. And by the way, when you start winning, guess what happens? More butts in the seats as well. And in the NHL, how about this? The Oilers defeated the Lightning 6-2, and literally it was courtesy of Connor McDavid because they won by 4, and he had the first 4-goal game of his career. Third player with a 4-goal game this season, joining Ovechkin and Patrice Bergeron versus the Hurricanes, and Ovechkin had his against the Canadiens.
Yeah, Austin Matthews, also who's 20 years old, had 2 goals and an assist last night, 2 young stars, but Connor McDavid is just, boy, what a special player he is. So get used to this. I mean, maybe not this particular type of night with a 5 points, with the 4 goals and an assist as well, but just he is something to watch. These young players, when we had Barry Melrose on, and remember we talked a lot about the young up-and-comers in baseball and how they're really taking over that game, and Barry says a lot about some of the youngsters in hockey as well as the older guys, the Ovechkins, Jaromir Jagr was already at 45 years old, but
literally he's the oldest guy.
Sidney Crosby. Yep. I mean, I remember we were talking about him as Sid the actual kid. Now he's
not so much
he's
anymore.
Sid the adult.
Yeah.
So you got this influx of the youth that's really, really not only coming out playing well, but some of the best in the league already.
Well, McDavid is only 21.
21.
He led the NHL in points last season with 100. Currently tied for third this season with 61, 21 goals and 40 assists. So Connor McDavid's going to be fun to watch for a lot of years. Golic and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. Valentine's bouquets come in all shapes and prices, but the best are at 1-800-Flowers.com. Get 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99, or upgrade to 24 red roses for only $10 more. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Golic and Wingo with you, and we're delighted to be joined now by our Patriots reporter. He's one of the best in the business at what he does. ESPN's Mike Reiss joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. And Mike, it's somewhat prophetic that we talk about making the switch in that read into you, because that's exactly what a lot of people are wondering. The hell happened on Super Bowl Sunday when they made the switch, Mike, to not play Malcolm Butler one defensive snap, a guy who played 98% of the defensive snaps in the regular season, and then you see Nick Foles throw for 370 plus and 3 touchdowns. What happened? What more can you tell us about why Malcolm Butler was not on the field except for one punt coverage?
Yeah, I'm still digging on, the answer to the question. What I can tell you is that when we caught up with Malcolm Butler after the game, and I was there with Adam Schefter, as Malcolm Butler made this long walk from the locker room to the team buses, and you could just see it in his face, the emotion, the hurt, as he made this long walk, and finally, he just sort of, at first didn't want to talk about anything, and then he just let it out. You remember what he said. He said, they gave up on me, and then he said, I could have changed that game. So he was hurt. He didn't know why he didn't play. He had speculated that, maybe he wasn't playing well or they didn't feel comfortable. But as he walked to the bus himself at Super Bowl Sunday after that game, he was at a loss to explain it himself. He didn't know.
I mean, listen, they're obvious. Nobody is buying this, right, Mike? Nobody's buying that they're just putting the best guy on the field that they think can win when this guy's played 98% of the snaps, which means he's played in a lot of different packages and sub-packages on defense. So isn't it just a matter of time? We're already hearing the reports that he missed curfew. In your dealing, let's just go with that for a second. In your dealings with that team or with Bill Belichick, we know if you don't show up to practice on time, even in a blizzard, just go home or don't even bother showing up. But would it be a situation if you miss curfew in a situation like that, he would just not play you in the game?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a plausible scenario. What I want to do is be fair to Malcolm Butler, because there's a lot of speculation out there, and, but not a lot of credible facts in terms of someone, putting their name on the record and saying this is what it is. I know that might be hard in this situation. It's probably a combination of a lot of factors. And, the one thing I would say from a football perspective, like if you want to look at what they did football-wise, it was a 2-corner game. I mean, I don't think they ran one play in the game with like their pure nickel package with 3 corners. So that's the first part of it. They went big nickel, so it was a lot of safeties in the game. So that played into it a little bit from a football perspective, but from a non-football perspective, your instincts tell you something had to have happened. He arrived at the Super Bowl one day later than the team. He had an illness. He said he went to the hospital. One question I have as a reporter, was that late arrival excused? We don't know that. We're taking Malcolm Butler's word for that right now. So I'm digging on that to see if maybe that had a factor in the decision. Was there anything else during Super Bowl week that happened that led to this decision? When did players find out? I'm hearing a lot of conflicting stories on that, and so it's sort of hard here to get to the truth right now. Some more time needed.
All right, we'll let you keep digging. Mike Reiss with us, our Patriots reporter here. Mike, I guess an overall question with Butler before we move on to other topics is, have there been issues that you've heard of between him and the team in the past that would lead up to some sort of culmination point that maybe there was a straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah, and it's a great question, Trey, because this is going back to 2014 now when he came in as an undrafted free agent out of West Alabama. And I wouldn't say that it's just issues. I think, Malcolm Butler has always sort of, put the team first in terms of his performance, and he represents a lot of what the team is all about. But behind the scenes, I would say, you have captains like a Devin McCourty and a Duron Harmon in that defensive backfield that are pretty steady on a day-to-day basis in terms of their showing up and their going through everything that Bill Belichick asked for. I think other players sometimes they require a little extra attention in those type of areas, and maybe that would be something that category Malcolm Butler falls into. And just in terms of a day-to-day reliability, there might be a little more volatility there. That's not to say anything about the character of the player, what he represents. So maybe there were some things there with Malcolm Butler where it required a little more attention in terms of the details of what Bill Belichick asks for on a daily basis.
Well, to finish up on Malcolm Butler, and then we'll wait to hear if there's more info. You don't think there's any way he's an unrestricted free agent, so you think he's going to be gone?
Well, I asked him, Mike, after the game, and did you hear his response? He said, "I ain't Miss Cleo, so I can't tell the future." But it's hard for me to imagine that he would be back with the Patriots, that he would want to be back with the Patriots. I mean, you saw his emotion during the national anthem to not play in the Super Bowl on defense after, 4 years with the team here and everything. He sort of spilled his heart for the team. It's hard for me to imagine he would want to be back here.
There's so many more layers to this story that we hope we'll try and figure out what it is. But look, if there was some sort of discipline on one level, you have to sort of respect Bill for being able to pull that cord at the Super Bowl, and you could make an argument that it really cost the team. On the other hand, it's like, okay, it's about winning. It's all about winning, and we got one more game to try and win. Let's see if we can put our best people out there. We'll see what happens. We'll leave that one there, and Mike, we'll let you and other people try and see if we can figure out exactly what the reason's there. But there are some other things to talk about with this team, and we have the announcement that Matt Patricia is the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. Mike, is there any reason why we haven't heard that Josh McDaniels has been announced as the new head coach of the Colts yet?
I would say that's probably more just semantics, and that's coming, and no turning back now, unless there was something way out, in left field. But no, I would expect that to happen probably today, if not tomorrow. And the Patriots and McDaniels, as I understand it, Trey, are moving forward with that being the scenario that's unfolding here. And I don't believe that's really ever been in question, at least over the last week or so since he had that last meeting with Jim Irsay coming to town with Chris Ballard to meet with McDaniels personally. And I think once that happened, it was solidified and he was moving forward.
How about the rest of the coaches? Dante Scarnecchia, is he moving on? He came back to help this team. And then other assistants that may go with either Patricia or with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike, because I'll tell you, Scarnecchia is the offensive line coach, and he's going to turn 70 on February 14th. So he's obviously close to the end here, and he actually had retired. He came back after 2 years away to coach, and he's a key guy for them. He talked at the Super Bowl about saying, I'm going to make a decision after the Super Bowl. I don't want to get into the future, but he sort of hinted that he would be open to coming back, and my sense would be that Bill Belichick, who Scarnecchia has great respect for, might lean on him a little bit and say, hey, can I get one more year out of you? I have a transition here on the offensive side with Josh McDaniels leaving. I might need you. So keeping an eye on that. Joe Judge, their special teams coordinator, we know how much Bill Belichick values special teams, is in the last year of his contract here, so he's sort of a free agent. We have to keep an eye on him because with McDaniels going to Indy, Patricia going to Detroit, there's going to be some options for him. So they could technically lose their top three coaches here if Joe Judge leaves as well.
Mike Reiss with us, our Patriots reporter. And along those lines, before we get to some other topics, just so people understand how significant it is to lose both your coordinators, maybe your O-line coach, and maybe a couple of other people. The last time, Mike, we saw the Patriots go through something like this significant in one off season, was after Super Bowl 39, ironically, also against the Eagles, where they lost Romeo Crennel, their defensive coordinator, and Charlie Weiss, their offensive coordinator, and it took them 10 years to win another Super Bowl. Now, obviously, they went to a couple and lost to the Giants, but it does take something out of you when you have so many people that you've been around for so long and suddenly they're all walking out the door, right?
No question. And then you look at how Bill Belichick's going to proceed, Trey, and one name that's sort of popping up here that we got to keep an eye on is Greg Schiano, who we know how close he is with him. And why I think this is important is that if Bill Belichick does bring in Schiano, as has been rumored in some circles, it would also help him fill out the rest of his staff, because Schiano has his own network of coaches that he can sort of bring with him, or some coaches that might come with him, if that goes as proceeds there. So no doubt, these guys have been in the system. They know, they sort of speak like Belichick. You talk to some assistant coaches that come in, they say it's almost like, they know the Belichick language. And so when you lose that, you sort of have to reboot. And maybe that can re-energize them in a little bit as they move forward.
So we're talking about coaching staffs here. How about players? I mean, Brady, I know he was asked and he said, listen, it's 15 minutes after the game. I don't think anybody believes he's not coming back. Gronk was an interesting one, as far as asked about his future. And for as fun-loving as Gronk is, that was one of the more serious answers I think he gave. Do you think there is any reason to believe he may not be back next year?
Mike, I'm going to give you my read on that. When I heard that, my first thought is, he's under contract for 2 more years. He's due to make $8 million in base salary for 2018. And he's due to make $9 million in salary for 2019. And when I heard that, my first thought was maybe that's the first sort of statement to say, hey, maybe that contract needs to be addressed here. First team All-Pro, feeling a little bit undervalued, and maybe that's making me not want to, run back here and play in 2018. So a lot of raw emotion right after the Super Bowl. I would be surprised if Gronkowski isn't back. But maybe that was a subtle sort of hint from him to the team to say, we might have to have a discussion here about that contract, before we're coming back here in 2018.
So you think it's more financial related than actually thinking about walking away?
That was my thought, and it's just speculation. I feel like he's at the top of his game, to walk away at the top of his game, and he seems to be having a great time with it. And he embraced being a captain here with the Patriots, so that would be my first thought. But again, just more of a feeling from being around him than anything I would know for sure.
Mike Reiss is with us, our Patriots reporter. Mike, the only thing that would give me a little pause about that is, I don't know if you saw the entire exchange. When someone first asked him about it, his response was, well, how did you hear about that? In other words, clearly this was something that he had been discussing with someone that he believed was close to him or in confidence, and he was kind of surprised that the idea of him thinking about retirement got out there.
Yep, and I did see that, and that's very fair, and so it's not something I would dismiss out of hand. At the same time, Trey, I'm sitting there thinking it's literally right after the Super Bowl. They've been through the grind for 8 months, and it almost felt like it was pushing fast forward here. Give them a little time. Sometimes your emotions are high after a game like that. So we'll definitely keep an eye on it. But that was my first thought when I heard it.
Yeah, it was just interesting the way he answered the question as opposed to Tom, who said, "Yeah, look, it's 15 minutes after the game, but absolutely, I'm coming back. There's no reason to believe that I won't." Just the whole semantics and the way their body language, everything was completely different about those two answers. Mike, it's never an off season for you, so you have some off season homework to do, and we always look forward to hearing your reports. And thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I think it's very cool the way they do the Hall of Fame. They basically tell you if you're a finalist, be in your room between these hours, and if you get a phone call, that means you're not in the hall. But if someone knocks on your door, that means you're in. So it's got to be one of the most tense times ever to be sitting in there during that 4-hour window and saying, okay, can you imagine if room service knocks?
Tense times? Listen, and for a football player, it's the complete opposite. I heard Mike talking about it this morning. The complete opposite. You get a knock on the door. Normally, that means bring your playbook.
Yep,
you're cut.
Exactly.
Now it's you're waiting for the knock on the door, and you hear the knock on the door. Usually, if you hear nothing for a football player, that means you're safe.
Yeah.
You hear nothing in this. Obviously, it means you didn't make the Hall of Fame. So complete opposite. But at least you know, obviously, what it is going in, and you're just waiting for the large human being in David Baker to knock on the door.
He is.
Oh, he is
enormous.
And I dealt with him a lot when I was doing arena football.
Me too.
He was running the Arena League, but now running the Hall of Fame, and gets that. What a great honor that has to be to go tell these men that they're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is very, very cool.
It certainly is. And I would just, if that was ever up to me, I would nobody call me. Okay, I don't want any of my friends calling.
I'm sure it's all laid out there. Yeah,
nobody call me. Yeah. I only want to get one call, and I don't want to think it's what it is if it is.
You don't want to get the call, quite honestly. You want to get the knock.
Correct. So here's the entire 2018 Hall of Fame class. Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, Brian Urlacher, Terrell Owens, Brian Dawkins, Bobby Beathard as a contributor, the longtime personnel guy with Washington, San Diego, everywhere, and the senior committee nominees, Jerry Kramer and Robert Brazil.
Robert Brazil's last year, by the way, was my first year with the Houston Oilers.
He talk about also huge.
Yeah.
Brazil still huge. Yeah. By the way, the great thing about Robert Brazil, we'll get to the other members of the class, he was picked out of Jackson State.
Yep.
In that same draft, 2 picks before Robert Brazil, Walter Payton was picked out of Jackson State. I looked it up. The year that they were selected, Jackson State lost 3 games. How in the heck did they lose 3 games when they had those 2 guys drafted within 2 picks of each other into the Hall of Fame? But a lot. I think a lot of us thought Ray Lewis was getting in. Randy Moss was getting in the first time. Maybe Brian Urlacher was getting in the first ballot.
I didn't think 2 linebackers would go in.
I didn't either.
So I thought Ray Lewis would get in over Brian, and I didn't think the way the wide receivers are in queue at times and had to wait when we were going through some of the wide receivers we went through. I thought no way 2 were going to get in, and I thought Moss would go in before T.O. Of course, all the people I just mentioned, every one of them deserving to be in the Hall. T.O. should have already been in the Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned. But they both go in. So, man, I think the position that got left, and Brian Dawkins, I mean, is there a better entrance coming out onto a field than Brian Dawkins when he's on all fours coming out? Just the aggressive, big hitting player that he was. It's incredible, fun to watch play. But then and then Jerry Kramer, what a great to be able to get that knock. And as you mentioned, the others from the Veterans Committee as well. But the O-line was really not represented at all. And you had the Steve Hutchinson, Alan Faneca, Tony Baselli still waiting to get into the Hall of Fame, which I think all of us believe he should get in the Hall of Fame. The O-line completely shut out of this class.
Yeah, I was really surprised that Baselli didn't get in.
Yeah, me too.
This is a guy who's waited a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And look, he was as dominant as an offensive
without
lineman
question.
As you get now, he had the shoulder injuries, which may have shortened his career.
We've seen shortened careers. Terrell Davis, Gale Sayers go back there. We have seen shortened careers, and this guy was the dominant, left tackle in the league for a number of years, and certainly the longevity, the more you have there, the better off you're going to be. But I still think it's a matter of time before he's in there. But I was surprised, none of those offensive linemen that I mentioned got in the Hall.
Well, yeah, Jerry Kramer obviously went to the Veterans Committee. I was happy for him. I was like, what took forever?
Boy, you're not
Jerry
kidding
Kramer
there.
To
That's
get in.
the truth.
I mean, just talk to anybody that played with him. You can even go look at the old NFL film stuff. He was a dominant guard on those Green Bay Packers teams. But I think a lot of people felt like an injustice that had been done because of nothing to do with football, really, was fixed on Saturday. And that's with Terrell Owens getting in the Hall of Fame.
Without a doubt.
Look, we all get it. He's annoying. He can be a jerk. He can be all of those things.
Yep.
You know what the Hall of Fame is filled with? Annoying jerks.
I was going to say, you want to start doing personality checks on any Hall of Fame. Yeah, then it's like, how hot dogs are made. Be careful of what you want to find out.
Correct.
About people. So, I mean, give me a break. The Hall of Fame, and there may be no one here I respect more than Bill Polian, and I disagree with his thought on this, him talking about, that you're supposed to help a team. And I get you're supposed to be a great teammate and help a team, but him not thinking T.O. should be in the Hall of Fame because of the locker room stuff. I just disagree with that. He is one of the greatest wide receivers to play the game on the field. He should be in the Hall of Fame. As I said, let's not character check everybody or you're going to be highly disappointed in a lot of people. But the Hall of Fame is for the great ones who played the game, and he should have been in already. And I'm glad, but the voters, trying to prove their little points every now and then. When you want to talk about something that makes me sick, that's something that does it in all the sports there. But you're right. A wrong was righted there, and now he and Moss going in together. That, along with Urlacher and Lewis going in together. That's what a position to represent those two.
Well, it's going to be one of the greatest classes.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this when we do the Hall of Fame in August. But Bill Polian will be on the show tomorrow. You guys can talk about that.
Yeah.
But see, like in baseball, it's different. Baseball, there's all this language about what it means to be a Hall of Famer. In the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there's none of that language. It's about, were you a dominant player on the field? Now, I've heard people like Bill and other people say, well, because, a couple of teams dropped him and he was disruptive, that can lead into how you affect the team. And
sure.
I get that.
Yeah, yeah. I understand what Bill was saying. I'm not saying I don't get what he's saying. I completely understand. But the bottom line is, to me, his performance on the field was Hall of Fame worthy.
Second most receiving yards in NFL history. Third most receiving touchdowns in NFL history. 9 1,000-yard seasons over an 11-year span. Set the then record for catches in a single game with 20 against the Bears. By the way, the interesting thing about that was on the day that they retired Jerry Reiss. It was his last game, And T.O. just upstaged him.
Yep.
He just said, yeah, that's great. It's your day and everything, but I'm taking it. Look, T.O. is abrasive. T.O. loves him some him.
Yes, he does.
As he said, there's no doubt in my mind that Terrell Owens, with what he did on the field, was a Hall of Famer.
No, none
whatsoever.
None.
You can have all these other little issues you want to deal with. And was it kind of jerky? Yeah, the sit-ups in the parking lot, the fight with Donovan McNabb, all of that stuff. But you know what? He played the Super Bowl on a broken leg, and he might have been the best damn player on the field.
Yeah, that's what I go on. I'm. It's not my job, and to me, it's not the voters' job to decide what personality you like or dislike on what a person does. It's about, are they Hall of Fame worthy for what they did on the field? And he is. All the guys that went in are, without question. It is an excellent class from those two positions represented, wide receiver and linebacker, to Brian Dawkins, who, again, he was gonna lay the wood to you, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I was really happy Doc got in.
Yep.
But let's be clear when we talk about T.O. All the things we talk about T.O., he was abrasive. He was let go by a couple of teams. He had some issues. You could make every one of those arguments for Randy Moss.
For Randy Moss, exactly right.
You know, straight cash homie. He walked off
the field.
Walked off the field once while the game was still going.
Right.
One of the things I'll always remember is when he was with the Raiders and they were having a bad game in Seattle, sitting on the bench, completely checked out.
Yep.
You know, so if you have these issues with T.O., you better have them with Randy Moss as well. You know, you can't have them for one and not for the other.
Completely agree.
There's no doubt in my mind Randy Moss was a Hall of Famer.
And both these guys are right where they should be. These two should be putting on gold jackets along with the other guys.
And they will be putting them in together, which was the surprise.
Yeah.
I think both you and I thought,
without question,
Lewis would go in alone and then we'll get in Urlacher later. Moss will go in alone, we'll get in Owens later, but they both go in together. It's going to make for one hell of a Saturday night in Canton, Ohio in August. Coming up in just a little bit, you'll hear from Randy Moss and how emotional he was when he got that knock on the door from David Baker. We continue on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2 and continue our conversation with the Hall of Fame. It is somewhat funny because I think sometimes it does get lost in the entire morass and the circus that is the Super Bowl because it's really, the two things could not be more different. The Super Bowl is all about being part of the ultimate team for that year, and being in the Hall of Fame is about being the ultimate at your individual excellence.
Right.
You know, they're two different things.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
And I hate it, by the way, when people say, well, how many rings did this guy have?
Oh.
It has nothing to do with whether or not you're a Hall of Famer. Give you an example. Joe Thomas is going to walk in to the Hall of Fame as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Right. And he played on arguably one of the crappiest teams over his entire year.
I would say, will there be a guy in the Hall of Fame, you can start obviously looking up of record, who had start looking at the worst records of anybody who played for that amount of time, that will be a Hall of Famer. I know there have been Hall of Famers who played on bad teams, but I mean, this has gone to a new level.
Yeah. And so it has nothing to do with rings. Like Joe Jacoby, by the way, did not get in. And we'll get to what Randy Moss is, what he had to say in a minute. And people he has more rings than the entire class.
Rings mean nothing.
It has nothing to do with it. Now, I think Joe Jacoby should be in the Hall of Fame.
I'm with you.
And I think he's deserving of that by the way he played. It has nothing to do with whether or not his teams won Super Bowls.
Right.
It's garbage. It's ridiculous.
Too many things with offense, defense, special teams to sit there and say because you got rings. I mean, because one of the greatest stories is John Elway. John Elway is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. But they won the rings when they got the running game with Terrell Davis.
Correct.
I mean, John Elway's got the rings. Well, okay. You know, it certainly wasn't at his best when he was getting those rings.
He was walking into the Hall of Fame if he never got those rings in his last 2 years. Yep. Dan Marino was a first ballot Hall of Famer, never got a ring. So you need to get this, you need to understand the concept. It's not about were you part of a winning team. It's about were you one of the best in the business at what you did when you played. That's the only standard that matters.
Well, look at the guys that went in. Name. I know we want to play Randy here, but the rings. Randy have a ring?
No.
T.O. have a ring?
No.
Brian Urlacher have a ring?
No.
Ray Lewis does have a ring.
Ray has a
Brian
ring.
Dawkins have a ring?
No.
I mean, but they're the best. Yeah, they deserve to be in the Hall still.
Rings are wonderful, and they're a team accomplishment. Hall of Fame is about your individual excellence, and that's why so many are so emotional, including our own Randy Moss, when he realized he was going to be in a place where one of his idols already is.
He's the guy that we're aiming for.
Yeah.
And so it just felt good just to play a 14-year career and just to hear from Jerry Rice. It really was. So I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all got to forgive me.
No, don't apologize for that.
It's just been a long journey, man.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just want to give a shout out to everybody back in West Virginia, man, back in my country, hometown of Rand, West Virginia, man. Y'all see how emotional I am? It's been a long road. It's been a long journey, man. It's been a lot of bumpy roads, man, but I wouldn't not change it for anything, man. First ballot Hall of Famer. Other than serving the man upstairs and loving my family, man, this is the best that they can ever give me, man. First ballot, man. I don't know what else I can say.
You did it.
And listen, when you hear about his journey now, some part of his journey was there were self-induced things that he did. But you want to see that 30 for 30, what was it, Rand
University.
I mean, and talk about some of where he came from and what he had to go through to get where he was. As I said, some self-induced, but others, I mean, of what he had to endure growing up. It was something. That was an eye-opening story about Randy Moss, no doubt about it, and ends up at the highest level an individual can make in this particular sport.
That sound was from Sunday Countdown on the Super Bowl when he was on there. He found out Saturday afternoon. I was actually with Randy about an hour before he found out he was in the Hall of Fame. We did something together in Minnesota, and he had the greatest line. He said, "Look, if the Hall of Fame comes, it's great. I can't control it. All I can tell you is I played the game because I loved it. I didn't like it. I loved it. And I wanted to play hard because I loved playing the game." And he's like, if it comes, it comes. And I think that, I think some of these guys sort of divorce themselves from the feeling because they don't want to be disappointed.
Right,
and
right.
Exactly. I almost feel like that's what he was saying there. But I whispered it. We were doing this on stage, and he goes, if it comes, it comes. I'm like, Randy, you're getting in.
Yeah, you're getting in, bud.
So I was kind of the jerk about it, because I'm sure you didn't want to be thinking about it that way.
Right.
But, it's just the raw emotion, because that's a validation of everything that you did and you think you did as a player when you step across that white line from the sidelines to the playing field. It's great. And this is going to be one of the great classes of all time. And the first year eligibles for next year's class, Ed Reed, Tony Gonzalez, Champ Bailey, Jonathan Vilma,
right?
Brian Waters, the fine guard for Kansas City for all those years. And then there's some guys like London Fletcher, Asante Samuel, and Jordan Gross, the former offensive lineman for Carolina, who, by the way, now does triathlons.
Yes, he does.
He's about 220 pounds.
See what he looks like? He looks fantastic.
He's almost as skinny as you.
Oh, no, he's skinnier than me.
That's how skinny he is.
Better athlete than me.
Well, I see you went there. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
I just beat you to the punch.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, that's true.
So, again, I can't wait for this year's Hall of Fame class. It's going to be great. Coming up, off-season storylines in the NFL. I'll give you my top 5 plus a new mock draft from Todd McShay as we roll on Golic and Wingo.